This is Dave Rubin. He used to be a TYT host. He was a big deal on the left for a while, until he finally built an audience and took a hard right turn. Now he carries water for Donald Trump and Ron DeSantis and every other right-wing charlatan out there. Watching his political evolution from being progressive to being a right-wing nutterbutter was bizarre. Anyways, he decided to talk about the World Economic Forum, which is a big organization registered with the United Nations, and it's at the heart of a ton of right-wing conspiracy theories. This is part 3. If you haven't seen the others, don't sweat it. This stands independently of the rest. I'll provide context if it's missing. The conspiracy Dave will be discussing today is called the Great Reset. I'll explain what it is in a minute, but let's listen to Dave fearmonger and pretend the Democrats want to bring about the apocalypse. Let's watch.
You must just keep going to the truth. You must not fear the mob judgment if you say, well, I'm curious about that balloon over there, and I'm a little worried about that atom bomb-looking explosion over there, and all of that stuff. We have to focus on what we can control. That's all of our local stuff, right? That's what states' rights and all that is about. Because now, to get us back to the beginning of the show when we talked about this one world government, well, Klaus Schwab continued at the conference. And tell me if this doesn't. I mean, the guy is right out of Casting 101. Give me the most evil-sounding guy possible with the most evil-sounding script. Could you do that? Here we go.
Okay, so if you're not familiar with Klaus Schwab, this is the guy right here. Okay, I don't know which part this is. This could still be part 1. But at the very beginning of this, he talked about Klaus Schwab, which is the leader of a group. I think it's like a United Nations NGO, basically, called the World Economic Forum. It's basically like a think tank that, works with very rich people like Bill Gates and others to try to improve society in various ways for different people, right? So, for example, they will plan and orchestrate the production and distribution of massive amounts of vaccines. So like in India, for example, there is a polio epidemic happening. Or in an African country, there's a polio epidemic happening, or there's a measles epidemic. So Bill Gates has $50 million, and he has 100,000 polio vaccine doses. And the World Economic Forum will help Bill Gates or whoever else figure out the most effective place to distribute those vaccine doses to increase the number of lives saved, basically. That's what the World Economic Forum is. But a conspiracy theory formed around the WEF when they said COVID is a unique opportunity to improve the living conditions of the poorest people on planet Earth by reworking or resetting global economies or the economies of certain world governments to be more favorable and equitable to the working class rather than to the billionaire class. That's basically what the Great Reset was. Was there an actual plan? No, there wasn't. There was no plan provided. But it was a suggestion like, hey, this is an opportunity to try to reset the world economies to be more equitable and favorable to these groups of people. And lo and behold, a bunch of conspiracy theories came out of the woodwork against the World Economic Forum, against Klaus Schwab, and made all kinds of claims about him trying to create a one-world government and blah, 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 blah. Weird how somebody suggests making things more equitable on a world scale, and suddenly conspiracy theories come out of the woodwork. Isn't that interesting? So anyway, that's Klaus Schwab. They propagandized about this guy just at the beginning of this Dave Rubin clip. Apparently he had things to say, more things to say. So let's listen.
Now, where we move into the exponential phase. And I agree, artificial intelligence, but not only artificial intelligence, but also the metaverse, new space technologies, and I could go on and on, synthetic biology. Our life in 10 years from now will be completely different, very much affected, and who masters those technologies in some way will be the master of the world.
If you master those technologies, you'll be the master of the world.
Okay, he's trying to read some conspiracy theory into this when the guy is just colloquially saying these technologies are going to be really popular in 10 years. And it's a good investment if you wanted to, like, invest in improving these technologies or whatever, then you'll probably benefit a lot. That seems to be the point that he was making. It's not like he's trying to create a one-world government. These are all conspiracies. This is all garbage spread by the far right. And it's honestly depressing to see how far down the right-wing pipeline Dave Rubin has gone. Like, how do you get this lost in right-wing propaganda? This is pretty lost in it, right? When people are talking about the, World Economic Forum, the Great Reset, and blah, blah, blah. It's just nuts, man.
Sort of godlike. Remember when John Kerry said, we're like gods. We're like gods here doing our environmental thing. We're so great.
No, I don't remember him saying that. What are you even talking about? Like, this is all conspiracy BS, all of it.
We're such gods. I mean, like the script, you get it? Like, who would say something like that? But there's just tons of them. There are tons of them, and they're hypocrites, and they're liars, and they're buffoons.
In what ways? Who? Specifically, give me names. Tell me what things they did that makes you think they're hypocrites, liars, and buffoons. Like, this conspiracy theory just confuses the hell out of me because there is no solid information to be had about it. Like, if you don't know what the Great Reset is, just watch this short clip that I did about it a little while back. It's like a 5-minute thing. Just skip forward like 5 minutes if you've already heard this, and we'll continue on. So you have an idea of what the Great Reset is. Let's just read through. This is a BBC article on what the Great Reset is. This is the title, What is the Great Reset and How Did It Get Hijacked by Conspiracy Theories? A vague set of proposals from an influential organization has been transformed by online conspiracy theorists into a powerful viral rallying cry. What is the truth behind the Great Reset? Believers spin dark tales about an authoritarian socialist world government run by powerful capitalists and politicians, a secret cabal that is broadcasting its plan around the world. Despite all the contradictions in the last sentence, thousands online have latched on to this latest reimagining of an old conspiracy theory, updated for the age of COVID. Yeah, the Great Reset conspiracy really came straight out of the Protocols of the Elders of Zion. This old book I've mentioned before multiple times, written by anti-Semitic people that basically described the Jews' plan for world domination. It was completely made up then, and it's made up now. Anyway, let's keep reading this. Where did it begin? Like many popular conspiracy theories, this one starts with a grain of fact. In June 2020, so 5 months after COVID really came to the shores of the U.S. and the world started taking it seriously, June 2020, the Prince of Wales and the head of the annual Davos Summit launched an initiative calling for the pandemic to be seen as a chance for what they called a great reset of the global economy. A flashy launch video interspersed images of a world in chaos, a dead killer whale, a hurricane, a kangaroo caught in a fire, with a speech by Prince Charles. We have an incredible opportunity to create an entirely new sustainable industries, the prince said. The time to act is now. Now, as I'm sure you've surmised at this point, the Great Reset is a massive conspiracy theory that encompasses nearly everything, but doesn't really have any details. It's weird how it all formed out, but think about this. Who serves to gain from the conspiracy theory that we have to prevent economies from serving the workers? The original plan that was being outlined at the Davos Summit, when it says calling for the pandemic to be seen as a chance to reset the global economy, they were saying reset it to be more amicable and fair and more equitable to workers. serve workers' rights. Who serves to gain from spreading this conspiracy theory? Really? You can't convince me that billionaires around the world were not involved in turning this into a conspiracy theory. You can't convince me. The other founder of the initiative is Professor Klaus Schwab, head of the World Economic Forum, which organizes an annual summit in a Swiss ski resort for some of the world's wealthiest and most powerful people. He explained the idea behind the Great Reset in an article accompanying the launch. The pandemic represents a rare but narrow window of opportunity to reflect, reimagine, and reset our world to create a healthier, more equitable, and more prosperous future. Who do you think had an investment in making this fall apart and turn into a conspiracy theory? Who do we know that is opposed to making things more fair and equitable and healthier? And suddenly, out of nowhere, it just explodes, and every conspiracy theorist in the world buys into this Great Reset thing. There's a Great Reset podcast and even a 280-page book, but the plan is light on specific detail. Professor Schwab does speak about a wealth tax and ending fossil fuel subsidies. Interesting. Who would be opposed to those things, I wonder? But the scope is huge, covering technology, climate change, the future of work, international security, and other themes, and it's difficult to see precisely what the Great Reset might mean in practice. This lack of clarity, combined with the plan being launched by an influential organization, provided fertile ground for conspiracy theories to grow. This is Klaus Schwab right here. A conspiracy theory is born. The proposals, along with the WEF itself, face legitimate criticism from a variety of sources. Conservative political figures and media outlets accuse the organization of pushing for environmental policies that would hurt the economy. Weird, huh? So it sounds like the Great Reset was intended to improve environmental policies, to make the world more equitable and fair for the worker. What were some of the other things they listed here? Create a wealth tax, work on technology, work on climate change, work on privacy rights, a whole bunch of other stuff. Such a weird... Who created this conspiracy, I wonder? What group of people would be opposed to these things? This is so weird. We'll never know. We'll never know who was opposed to this. What group of people could have started this conspiracy theory? It's just a mystery. There are questions about whether unelected individuals like Mr. Schwab should have the power to lobby so prominently for ideas that could potentially transform the global economy. Okay, well, he's unelected, but he's free to voice his interests and concerns. Everybody is. That's the nature of democracy. The Davos meeting is certainly filled with powerful people who have a huge influence on world events. There are also concerns about the impact of technology on civil liberties and jobs. But the real energy online is not about legitimate political questions, discussions about fossil fuels and income inequality, but in the shape of wild and unsubstantiated claims. The term Great Reset has received more than 8 million interactions on Facebook and been shared almost 2 million times on Twitter since the initiative was launched, according to BBC Monitoring Research. Number of Great Reset posts on Facebook, posts using keywords between June 2020 and May 2021. Among the most popular posts are baseless statements that the Great Reset is a strategic part of a grand conspiracy by the global elite who somehow planned and managed the COVID-19 pandemic. In this narrative, lockdown restrictions were introduced not to curb the spread of the virus, but to deliberately bring about economic collapse and a socialist world government, albeit run for the benefit of powerful capitalists. So there's mention of the Great Reset when the plan comes out, June 2020. And then Justin Trudeau released a viral video about, the Great Reset, and it just exploded in the number of posts online about it. The number of posts on Facebook. Interesting, right? And then conspiracy theorists started coming up with all kinds of crazy ideas. In this narrative about the COVID-19 pandemic, lockdown restrictions were introduced not to curb the spread of the virus, but to deliberately bring about economic collapse and a socialist world government, albeit run for the benefit of powerful capitalists. The nebulousness of this conspiracy theory means it's found followers among anti-vax activists, anti-lockdown campaigners, New Age healers, and those on the far right and the far left. J.P. Sears he used to be kind of funny, but now he's a complete nutcase. And he's got like millions of subbies, I think. It's the guy in the middle of this picture right here. You'll own nothing and be happy, the Great Reset. Now look, Franklin Graham, televangelist, even got in on the action. How did it go viral? These conspiracy theories began circulating online around June 2020, but only gained significant traction later in the year. On November 15th, the phrase started trending on Twitter when a video went viral showing Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau at a UN meeting in September, saying the pandemic provided an opportunity for a reset. It's unclear whether he's referring to the WEF plan. But some claimed his speech was proof that global leaders were using the pandemic as a pretext to introduce a range of socialist and environmental policies. Thousands of Trump supporters boosted this idea. They claimed that a victory for Mr. Trump in November's election was the only chance to thwart the so-called secret plot. They called it Agenda 2022, I think. Agenda 2022 or Agenda 2020, something like that. And the idea was they wanted to have... Or maybe it was Agenda 2023. I don't remember now. The idea was that they wanted to have the Great Reset fully implemented and a one world government implemented by 2023. But no, it was 2020. And Trump getting elected in 2016 thwarted that plan and pushed it off. And now it's Agenda 2030. It just completely made up all of it. It's all entirely fabricated out of the ether. So that is the Great Reset. I hear you asking, but what is it? And the answer is nobody knows. I still don't know what it is. Nonsense, that's what. It incorporates every conspiracy theory known to man. Lizard people and socialism and one world government, all of it. It's insane. So, yeah, it was picked up by QAnon and basically everybody out. Every conspiracy theory of every variety. QAnoners, anti-vaxxers, anti-lockdown campaigners, New Age healers, people on the far right, people on the far left. Like, it's just widespread is the point. Here are some other points that have kind of been worked into the conspiracy. The pandemic was created by the elites. Microchips will be injected into people that alter people's DNA and act as like your credit card, and a whole bunch of other stuff. So, yeah, it borrows ideas from like a ton of conspiracy theories from the 18th and 19th centuries. It's just nuts, dude. It's just nuts, all of it. Thanks, past me. Anyways, yeah, let's keep listening to Dave Rubin carry water for like propagandists and just weird, man. Keep listening.
And they would never live the way they want you to live. So here is a guy who invented viruses. Not the first inventor of viruses, but invented viruses on computers. I'm pretty sure I can say that. I'm sure NewsGuard's going to fact check me. But remember when computers came out, like sort of ubiquitously across America, late 80s, early 90s? We started, the Apple computer was first. Then we had these IBM computers, then all these knockoffs, and they all had Windows. And then suddenly viruses. You would go to open up a window, there would be a virus, 5 more viruses. And mostly, you kids don't know this, but back in our day when we had computers and we'd sit at the desk with the computer, mostly you were just closing windows because viruses just kept popping up. It was just a lot. People's fingers were like this. There was a condition because you were just all day long closing viruses on your...
He's talking about pop-ups, I guess. He obviously didn't know what he was doing, but okay. I do remember that time period because because my dad owned a computer repair shop. I have used computers since I was a tiny little tyke. I was a little itty-bitty fella when I used my first computer. I was writing calculators in C when I was 9 years old, and other things. I've been programming since I was 9, but I really started doing it like a lot and really getting into it and reading these books and stuff when I was about 12, give or take. 12, 13 years old, somewhere in there. So I've been involved in the computer world since the 90s. And, oh my God, I just straight up jumped right over the top of that pole. So, yeah, I don't remember. I mean, I remember pop-ups, but then you just hit Control, Alt, Delete, and then close. You didn't have to select Task Manager. It just opens the Task Manager back then. And you just close the web browser and problem solved. All of the... this guy just had no idea how to use computers, apparently. Okay.
Your computer. Of course, Windows was created by Bill Gates. Bill Gates is the biggest climate hypocrite there is. He got asked by a journalist about his climate hypocrisy and what he...
Dude, how are we getting off on this tangent? I don't understand. He's going... This is one long run-on sentence. And, I mean, from the very beginning, we are 42 minutes into this clip from Dave Rubin, and this is the same exact sentence that he started with at the very beginning. Anyways, how did we get on the subject of Bill Gates being a hypocrite, a climate activist, and then creating Windows? What? I don't understand. For what it's worth, Bill Gates actually stole the idea of creating an operating system with a user interface that has a mouse that you click things and all of that. He stole that idea from Xerox. And Steve Jobs stole the idea at the exact same moment and got really upset that Bill Gates stole it too, basically. And there's a big famous confrontation between the two of them where Bill Gates, with crazy eyes, said, "You're like a thief who walked in and saw somebody else there stealing a TV, and then you get upset about it," or something like that. It was really psychotic, but super interesting. Bill Gates is generally a pretty good guy now, but we're off subject. Let's listen to Dave here.
Tries to back out of it, but bleh.
What do you say to the charge that if you are a climate change campaigner, but you also travel around the world on a private jet, you're a hypocrite?
Well,
you know, personally, I feel like this is the same charge that people level against others who believe that taxes should be higher. Like, I believe that taxes should be higher, but I'm not personally sending more money to the government than I'm legally expected to, basically. That doesn't make me a hypocrite, because I don't want, like, me paying more taxes isn't going to change much. I want everybody else to pay more in taxes, including me. I think everybody should. And, you know, Bill Gates is doing a lot of work in climate activism to try to improve the world, improve the situation that we found ourselves in. And part of that is getting around. To do that, he has to get around. He has to go places to improve conditions and situations. Companies are some of the biggest polluters around. Companies should be held responsible for that and pay a carbon tax or be forced to take part in some amount of environmental cleanup or whatever. If I have to take a private jet somewhere to convince politicians to push that out as law to improve the situation for everybody, I'm totally okay with that, honestly. I mean, if you're just running around all willy-nilly using a private jet to do whatever and have a good time, that's one thing. That's not really what he's doing exactly.
by the gold standard of funding Climeworks to do direct air capture that far exceeds my family's carbon footprint. And
Yeah, that's basically what I said, yeah.
I spend billions of dollars on climate innovation. So, you know, should I stay at home and not come to Kenya and learn about farming and malaria? Anyway, I mean, I'm comfortable with the idea that not only am I not part of the problem by paying for the offsets, but also through the billions that my Breakthrough Energy group is spending, that I'm part of the solution.
Absolutely. He's most definitely part of the solution, for sure. If it's a requirement for him to get to these places in a private jet to find solutions to these problems, I'm okay with him using a private jet.
No, you're not part of the solution. And yes, you should stay home, much like you endorsed.
Well, see, that's the problem. Dave doesn't believe there's a problem at all. Dave can't say that he's not part of the solution if there is no problem in the first place in his mind, right?
For us plebes to stay at home and be locked down. When you...
Dude, nobody's trying to lock anybody down over climate change. What?
We're, of course, part of the solution. And yes, you should stay home, much like you endorsed for us plebes to stay at home and be locked down. When you were, of course, staying home during COVID, you have, I don't know, he's probably got a dozen houses, billions of dollars worth of
He does, yeah, absolutely. He's filthy rich.
real estate. He's the #1 farmland owner in the United States. Should he not get on his private plane and go to Kenya? I'm pretty sure the people, the Bill Gates plane is landing. You think the people are like, oh, it's Bill Gates. We're so excited. Bill Gates is here. Bill.
Well, like I said, Bill Gates, people don't realize how much he does. He's a philanthropist. You have no idea how much money and time and effort he puts into helping people. Like, oh my God. He spends just an obscene amount of money on vaccines for people to help them, people who wouldn't otherwise be able to access this stuff, improving the living conditions of others. I mean, holy shit, dude. If you're going to have a philanthropist, a filthy rich philanthropist, you would want it to be Bill Gates. He does so much good work. Oh my God. He used to be a scumbag. Back in the day, he was a scumbag, a terrible person. In his old age, he has really improved the living conditions of, you have no idea how many people. So many people. If I remember, this is from Innate Conversations. If I remember correctly, someone tried to sell Microsoft a GUI system, which is like the user interface thing. I think it was Windows 3.1.1 was the first real user interface on a computer. It may have been earlier, may have been later, but it was the first commercial one at the very least, is what I mean. The first commercial one. But Microsoft declined because they thought it would take off. Then they petitioned Apple, and Apple implemented it, and it took off. So then Microsoft implemented it. Okay, I didn't really remember how it played out exactly, but yeah, there's a big conflict between Steve Jobs and Bill Gates, who were both scumbags back then. Steve Jobs kind of continued on to be a scumbag in, later in life. That's all beside the point. But yeah, there's a big battle between them.
We just have to keep exposing these people because they will mandate more rules on your life, and an awful lot of people are going to disappoint you when they...
What rules did Bill Gates mandate for anybody? What is he talking about? Like, this whole thing is completely made up, all of it. There, at no point was there ever a mandate from Bill Gates or from the federal government. Through the course of the pandemic, there was never a mandate for anybody. There was never a federal lockdown, and there was never a vaccine mandate. There's a testing mandate, which you could be exempt from if you got vaccinated. So if you weren't vaccinated, you had to take a COVID test like once a week by your, mandated by the federal government on all employers. They had to test you once a week. That's not a vaccine mandate. There was no COVID lockdown federally. Some states implemented a COVID lockdown. Some, temporarily. And honestly, it wasn't even a lockdown. People were free to go out. You just couldn't keep your businesses open, basically. And the government paid these companies through PPP loans to keep their employees paid, to keep their doors open, technically. So I don't even know what he's talking about. Bill Gates, imposing mandates on people. What?
They do. They will come back with masks, whether it's COVID-9 or environment related or whatever it might be. They will come.
COVID-9? Why did he call it COVID-9?
Come back with more booster shots and all of the stuff. And this one's going to blow your mind. I saw this one yesterday. This is just incredible. Do you know, this is true, ladles and jelly spoons, this is totally true, that the CDC, the Center for Disease Control, is still recommending masks on 2-year-olds now.
Okay, masks are helpful. They can be helpful. They decrease the number of infections. Yeah, of course, because you're not blowing particles out. Watch what happens. Watch, okay? I'm going to do a little demonstration here real quick. Let me blow this puppy up. Now watch this. I'm going to take in. This is me without a mask, okay? That's just me breathing out regularly, right? I have to do this quickly because the vapor dissipates. All right, now this is me with a mask, all right? Nothing. How about that? Interesting, right? It's because it blocks the airflow from going out further. The virus can escape through the mask, no problem. That's true, but it prevents air from going and spreading through the room as quickly or as easily. Does it prevent a lot of infection? Maybe not anymore, since the virus mutated. It's gotten easier and easier for the virus to pass through masks. With new variants, there was less efficacy in masking, but it does help prevent the spread at least a little bit. And who fucking cares? Why is it that big of a deal? Why does Dave care that much to throw a fit over people wearing a mask? Is it really that big of a deal? Of course, the CDC recommends mask wearing. Yes, they do. Why do you care? Why is it a big deal? Vorkvoid says you can die in a car accident if you wear a seatbelt, but you should still wear it, is how I explain it. Yeah, that's a good point. It prevents some infection. Seatbelts prevent some deaths. Right. But they're like obsessed with people, persecuting them for forcing them to wear a mask. You guys want to see something interesting, actually? Let me show you this. I found this clip the other day and I saved it because I thought I could do something with it eventually. Yeah, I meant to save this video. Let me just save it real quick. All right, let me just blow this up for you real quick so you guys can see what I'm doing too. This is the podcast. This is my new clips source thing. Downloads. Okay. Just gonna cut this out. Okay, now I'm gonna blow it up. Actually, before I blow it up, let me just cut some of the cut some of this off here real quick. 357. That'll do. Okay. And then I'm going to cut some of the left off again, just a little bit. There we are. Now I'm going to copy, paste, drag up, blow this up a little more. Give it the old Gaussian blur over here. Increase the blur. Move it to the left just a hair. That should do the trick. Awesome. Now create new clip. And now normalize the audio. 6. Cool. Should be it. Now let me save it. Okay, cool. Got it. Make sure that it's named properly. Cool. And then save it to clips. 219. Save. Awesome. All right, now let me pull this clip up for you. That was a lot of work, but that's how I do it. That's what I do every Sunday and every day, basically. I'm doing clips like that, trying to organize them, produce them, and clean them up. And I have a massive clips folder where I go through the process of cleaning clips up and cleaning up audio and fixing them and everything. If you want to see the clips folder, you can. Just go to telltaleatheist.com/clips. It's free. I'm not selling you anything. You can just access every clip I've ever talked about since, I think, 2020 or something. Anyway, it's interesting what Dave was saying a minute ago about, what was it? Let me step back, listen again.
So Rochelle Walensky, who is in charge of the CDC, she was testifying yesterday in front of Congress, still defending this concept. I do want to mention one thing. I told you guys when we went to D.C. a couple months back.
Right. I find it fascinating that Dave Rubin is complaining about people wearing masks and stuff like that. Check out this clip from, I think, the 80s when they were prohibiting people from drinking alcohol while driving. Listen to this.
Still, any attempt to restrict drinking and driving here is viewed by some as downright undemocratic.
It's kind of getting common this when a fella can't put in a hard day's work, put in 11, 12 hours a day, and then get in your truck and at least drink 1 or 2 beers.
They're making it laws where you can't drink when you want to. You have to wear a seatbelt when you're driving, and pretty soon we're going to be a communist country.
Seriously, this has been going on since the 80s. Same talking points. It's absurd. Completely and totally absurd. It just blows me away that this is what was happening all the way back then even. It's crazy. So anyways, yeah, Dave Rubin is going to be viewed this exact way, in my opinion. Are you kidding me? You're unwilling to wear a mask to help save people's lives? Yeah, maybe it reduces infection by 2%. Who knows? Hell, maybe it reduces it by 50%. I have no idea. I don't have the studies in front of me. They're out there. There's an objective answer to be had here. But even if it were only 2%, you are saving the lives of 2% of the people around you by just wearing a mask. And he's throwing a fit about it and pretending to be persecuted, and he's a victim. He's always the victim in every situation, isn't he? Just embarrassing and sad. There is a chart for the percent effectiveness of each type of mask, and with just or both wearing masks. Okay, interesting. Yeah, I don't know what the chart looks like. I don't know where it is or whatever else, but you know, there's a percentage of people who are saved by wearing masks. Absolutely. Why is he so opposed to helping a small percentage of people? Why?
That I was walking, they have the tunnel, I think, that goes between, what was it, between the Capitol and the, where Congress...
Talking about going to Washington, D.C.
The congressional offices, basically. So there's this underground tunnel. We're walking through the tunnel, and I walked right by Walensky. Like, we basically touched shoulders. And
who? I don't know that name, I don't think.
There was something about her, I kid you not. We all looked at each other like, she does not seem human. She might be some sort of lizard person. NewsGuard, you can check me on that one.
Dude, are you kidding me? You must be joking. There's a guy named David Icke. I don't know if you guys have heard of this guy before, but he is a total conspiracy theorist. He's the one who popularized the claim that, you know, lizard people run the world or whatever. In conspiracy circles, if you've never run in these circles before, the people who believe that the world is run by lizard people call them Arcturians. They believe it's an alien race who is out to control the world and blah, blah, blah. You know how these conspiracy theorists are. They believe they're out to control the world, and they think that the lizard people are Arcturians, and some people have even come out and claimed to be Arcturians. Like, QAnon believes that Q, the guy who started QAnon in the first place, is an Arcturian secretly. There's a QAnon group that follows a woman named Ramana Didulo. The people who follow her believe her to be an Arcturian. They are basically lizard people. They are alien lizard people who came to planet Earth from a faraway, distant planet to control everything and everybody around them, basically. That's the idea behind it. But Ramana Didulo, the Arcturian to whom they're referring, is a good lizard person. She works for the people rather than for the evil to control the world or whatever. It's all completely made up. It is the pinnacle of conspiracy theory. And it's honestly embarrassing to see how far Dave Rubin has fallen. He is now buying into the craziest conspiracy theories in existence, in my opinion. Absolutely nuts.
Because I'm pretty sure we'll find something very disturbing and cold-blooded. Anyway, here's CDC's Rochelle Walensky defending masks on 2-year-olds.
Oh, that's who he was talking about. He passed the leader of the CDC. I didn't know who that person was.
Yesterday.
In fact, the CDC is currently the only national or international public health agency that recommends masking 2-year-old children. I'd like you to explain in detail the process and the timeline by which evidence such as this is used by the CDC to update, modify, or necessary withdraw current guidance.
Great. Thank you for the opportunity to clarify on those.
Oh, that's her. Okay. Interesting. That's Walensky, apparently.
point. So I believe you're referring to the Cochrane Review study. This is an important study, but the Cochrane Review only includes randomized clinical trials. And as you can imagine, many of the randomized clinical trials that were included in that were for other respiratory viruses, not COVID-19. Some of them were for COVID-19, just to be clear, but it is very different for COVID-19 because you have a virus that different from flu, potentially different from SARS or MERS, transmits before you actually have symptoms. It's also the case that one of the limitations in that study was clearly stated that people were not actually engaged in the intervention. So you actually have to wear the mask for it to work.
Okay.
So there
Dr.
are lots of
Walensky?
studies now in Georgia.
Dr. Walensky, why are we masking our kids today?
Thank you. Also, so our guidance for school-based masking is related to our COVID-19 community levels. And fortunately, we're in a
Wait, 2-year-olds? Oh my God, I didn't mean to hit that. I'm just going to die again. 2-year-olds are not in school, but okay.
place now in this country where most of our country is in green or yellow.
So what is your timeline for updating, reevaluating these guide?
Who cares? Why doesn't the CDC just keep the guidelines out forever? Yeah, I recommend that we always mask 2-year-olds until the end of time. No, that's just guidance. That's not federal law. You're not forced to, keep a mask on your 2-year-olds. It's not like a command, like if you don't do it, then you're going to prison or something. I don't know why she cares if this is updated or not. It's irrelevant. They must find a reason to be persecuted, right? There's always some reason why they are mistreated and persecuted terribly. It's obnoxious and ridiculous.
Guidance.
Our masking guidance doesn't really change with time. What it changes with is disease.
Pure abject nonsense. Now, I hope, and I know if you're...
How is that pure abject nonsense? He didn't debunk anything. He just called it nonsense.
You're watching this show, you are no longer listening to the CDC, and you should not. You don't have to listen to me. You should make whatever choices are right for you and your family and everything.
You should look at the science and the data. Luckily, the CDC releases the science and the data and bases their decisions off of it. So you should actually listen to the CDC because they base it off of science and data. Feel free to check that and make sure they're telling the truth because government organizations do lie from time to time. But they're not hiding anything. They're not covering anything up. They're not preventing you from accessing this data, saying, oh, you're not smart enough to understand it, so we're just not going to provide the data to you. That's not happening. This guy just lives in a fantasy land where he wants to demonize the CDC no matter what it takes, and it's just disgusting, man.
Everything else. I can tell you, I got 2 kids downstairs, both of whom are actually a little under the weather right now, and David's a little under the weather too. We're running an infirmary here right now. I'm the only one operating at 100%, so I'm going to have a very crazy day after I finish this. There's going to be a lot of spit up all over me, is what it is. That's just fine. I am never putting masks. I mean, the idea that you would put a mask on a 2-year-old because that crazy, dishonest blank, fill in the blank yourself, wants you to do it after.
I don't understand. No, that's not why people are putting masks on 2-year-olds. First of all, it's because the science indicates that it's the best thing for them. It's the safest thing to do. It keeps people safe, first of all. And second, what's the problem? I don't understand. Do you wear pants when you go to the store? Do you wear a shirt or socks? What's the deal? Why do you care so much? Why is she a crazy blank for suggesting you wear a mask?
After all of this time, after lying about everything, lying about social distancing and masking, we know now.
They didn't lie about any of that stuff. The CDC did not lie about any of that. Where is this coming from? It's like he just asserts garbage baselessly and repeats it so much that people believe it with absolutely no reason.
Now, go to CVS, go to Walgreens, go to the pharmacy of your choice, pick up a box of masks, and you know what it says on the side? Does not prevent COVID. This crazy woman...
That's correct. It doesn't prevent COVID. You know what it does prevent? I did a demonstration earlier. It prevents airflow from moving further away from your face, which means if somebody comes within 20 feet of you and you're both wearing a mask, you're less likely to catch COVID than if you weren't wearing a mask because the airflow is restricted when you wear a mask. But if you think that, a single N95 or a single paper mask over your face is going to, you can get in someone's face and breathe right into them and they're not going to get COVID, well, you're just not looking at the science. The science never suggested anything like that at any point. It's so black and white with people like Dave Rubin and others. Either the masks prevent COVID or they do not. Either I am safe to wear a mask and go out in public, or I am not. That's not how science works. That's not how any of this works. And I believe that people like Dave Rubin know that. I don't think that his listeners understand that. I think they're a little, they're not quite, maybe they're just a little too dense to get the nuances here. But Dave Rubin, I think he knows that. He's not an idiot. He plays one on TV, but he's not actually an idiot, in my opinion. There are percentages, there are statistics that we can look at. Even if it reduces deaths by 0.5%, it's worth it to wear a mask. Honestly, a mask is now a permanent part of my winter garb because it's so much warmer to wear a mask in the winter. Why don't people wear masks more often, honestly? It just blows me away that he has come to the point that he has, where he propagandizes for people like this. Why?
Still will not reverse. I'm telling you, she's a lizard. We should have stopped her. We should have stopped her. And it could have been like the end of Ace Ventura. Remember? And then you see the... Okay. Here's...
I'm sorry. No, I don't know what that was about. It was kind of a weird thing to say, but all right.
Bernie Sanders. And I haven't played a video. God knows how long it's been with Bernie Sanders. I mean, it's funny. The revolution just ate the guy. He's completely irrelevant. He's just this old babbling socialist buffoon. Nobody cares about him anymore. But here's
That's not entirely true. His chance to run for president has passed. He will never be president, sadly. I would love to see the dude as president. It's not going to happen. That doesn't mean he's irrelevant. He still has a lot of supporters. He still gets donations. He still influences the political landscape. He's still incredible in many ways. So, yeah, that's just not a fair characterization of the situation. But, okay.
Bernie. And suddenly he's very upset about what we did to kids. Now, this is a guy who, of course, loves the teachers union. We'll get to that in just a second. But he's very upset because they lock kids down. And, of course, he was for all the lockdowns. He loves government.
There were no federal lockdowns at any point during the pandemic in the United States. This is completely made up. The right loves to pretend that their rights were violated because they were forced to lock down against their will and all this other garbage. That never happened. Nobody was ever forced to stay indoors at any point. You were perfectly free to go out. But Dave and others are desperate to make themselves out to be victims, to make everybody out to be victims.
Nothing that Bernie's...
Oh, wait a minute. Somebody is telling me here, somebody is saying that was a transphobic dig about Ace Ventura. I don't even remember that movie. It's been many, many years since I've seen it. So, yeah, I guess apparently Dave was being transphobic with that one. I didn't hear that. That doesn't surprise me, though. Disappoints me. Disappoints the hell out of me, but does not surprise me at all.
Sanders loves more than government and taking money so government can do things, and he loves middle management and bureaucracy and all of that stuff. But now, 3 years later, he's upset because, a couple kids the kids are stupid now, basically.
And then I talked to kids about the isolation they experienced in COVID, the disruption for the first time. Modern history of this country. We all went to school. So in kindergarten, you go to school. These kids' lives have been disrupted. They didn't get the education that they needed.
Yeah, from my understanding, preventing kids from going to school for as long as they did actually did untold amounts of damage. It did so much damage that we won't know the extent of the damage that it did to kids' psyches until years down the line. Not just through isolation, but they basically lost 6 months of education by doing work from home stuff. Now, did it save a lot of people's lives? Oh, you bet it did. Was it worth it? I think that the right decision was made to pull kids out of school, at least temporarily. Did it go on a little bit too long? Maybe. I don't know. We can look at data to figure this out. But see, there's no nuance with people like Dave Rubin. He's counting this as a W, like he's been saying this all along. In reality, Dave Rubin has been screaming about masks and lockdowns that didn't happen and all this other stuff for like ever. It's like with conspiracy theorists. Like, think about this, okay? They claim that there's that COVID leaked from a lab. No reason to claim that. Absolutely none. There's no evidence to back it up. But they claim it anyways. A year, 2, 3 years down the line, we investigate that and we find that maybe it did. Now, it didn't. That's been investigated. But hypothetically, let's say it was investigated and we came to the conclusion that, in fact, it did leak from a lab. That doesn't mean Dave Rubin was right to make that assumption in the first place. It doesn't mean conspiracy theorists were right along. They didn't have the evidence they needed to make that assumption that it leaked from a lab. Whether it turns out it did or not, that's not a W for conspiracy theorists. You need evidence before you believe anything. I don't care what it is or who believes what or any of that. I don't care. I care about requiring evidence for claims. And people like Dave Rubin don't seem to have any understanding of how basic claims like this should work, about burden of proof or evidentiary burden or any of that. They don't seem to have the most basic understanding of how the scientific method works. Now, in Dave Rubin's specific case, I think he does. I think he knows exactly how all of this works and why everything that he says is complete fucking nonsense. I think he knows, but he's propagandizing to people who don't and agreeing with them and validating their bad ideas.
They didn't see their friends. They didn't play ball. They didn't do theater. Okay? And on top of that, they're sitting worrying about whether the planet is going to be here for them when they are older because of climate change. They got all of these things on their minds.
Kids are worried. They're worried because we locked them out of school. Like, sure, I did it too. Everybody did it. We all did it. I did. They don't go to school and put on the mask and make sure you're vaccinated. And now they don't go to basketball. They're not going to theater.
Why is he making fun of him right now? I mean, everything that he said was 100% spot on.
Oh, I don't know, I'm not sure. Am I doing Jackie Mason or Bernie Sanders? I'm not sure. A schmuck like me and I can't do it, huh?
He's doing a racist, anti-Semitic, Jewish stereotype is what he's doing. Even though he is Jewish himself, that doesn't mean that he can't be anti-Semitic. You most definitely can be black and racist against the black community. You can be anti-Semitic and Jewish simultaneously. Just look at Ben Shapiro, for example. Like, there are a billion examples of this. But okay. Go on. Continue on with your racist stereotype here, Dave.
Bernie, well, Bernie, this one's for you. Here's a picture of you and Teachers Union President Randi Weingarten. You love her, you old socialist buffoon. Yes.
Bernie is not a socialist, actually. To my knowledge, it appears to me that Bernie Sanders is a social democrat, which is basically a capitalist who believes in heavily regulated capitalism with social programs added in, like Social Security, for example.
He was in on it with all of these people.
What now? I'm Bernie Sanders and kids can't...
Saying in on it implies some kind of a nefarious malice or something. What was he supposedly in on?
Kids are also dying of heart attacks at an increasing rate. CBS covered that.
Heart attack deaths have become more common across all age groups since the start of the coronavirus pandemic.
But a recent study found that young people are actually most at risk in this case. According to Cedars-Sinai Hospital, the number of heart attack deaths among 25 to 44-year-olds in the U.S. over the first 2 years of the pandemic was 30% higher than predicted.
Oh, and you know what we didn't have in the first 2 years of the pandemic? A vaccine. Now, maybe we had one in the first 2 years, but not the first year. Heart attack deaths were up, not because of the vaccine, which is what he's about to blame it on, but because of the virus. COVID caused all kinds of insane, unknown effects. Deeply disturbing stuff. You know, myocarditis was reported with the vaccine. You know what else it was reported with? COVID. Would you rather die of COVID or risk a few mild side effects that people get over? The death rate from the virus is significantly worse than with the vaccine. There is no death rate with the vaccine, to my knowledge. They're just doing everything they can to demonize it and make people think that it's dangerous and everything else. Why? Because they're conspiracy theorists. Simple as that.
I don't know. Did we inject a whole bunch of young people with all sorts of weird stuff and we didn't?
In the first year? No. No, we didn't. And no, it wasn't weird stuff. It was a vaccine. A vaccine that is perfectly safe. It's been tested beyond a shadow of a doubt at this point after all of these years. Like, we've been giving the vaccine to people for, 2 years now, right? I mean, we're in 2023, people. Oh, my God. The vaccine is already well tested. There is no doubt of its efficacy now. We know exactly how effective the vaccine is.
Didn't know what was going on? Did we strap weird shit on kids' faces?
No, the kids strapped masks on their faces, which lowered the death rate.
We scared the hell out of them about the environment. That was the other part of the Bernie. I'm not worried about the environment. Ugh. Remember my video on PragerU about the bravery deficit? I think it was my third.
No, I don't watch PragerU.
PragerU video. That's all we need, guys. Just get over the bravery deficit so that when a woman like Walensky says something, you just laugh in their face. And when a buffoon like Bernie says something, you laugh in their face. Or when Randy Weingarten or Joe Biden or any of these people, Gay Pete, any of them, when they say something, no, you are liars. You are all in on the lie, and I will not participate in the lie. I will no longer participate in the lie, right? That's
he lives in a fantasy land. This is so sad.
The great Alexander Solzhenitsyn quote. Like, all you have to do to stop this thing is stop participating in it. People participate in the lie because they're afraid if you don't participate in the lie, the thing will come get you. And that might be true to some degree. But do you think playing that never-ending game of shaving a little bit of truth off the top, do you think that'll save you? I don't think so. I don't think so. And when you do the right thing, you are rewarded for it. Ron DeSantis.
In Florida.
God, Ron DeSantis is just terrible in every way. He's banned books throughout the state to a disturbing degree. Like, the number of books he's banning is absolutely disturbing. He banned, to my knowledge, I think he banned Lord of the Rings, possibly Harry Potter. He banned 1984, the book 1984. He banned all kinds of stuff, dude. Those books are banned in a bunch of districts in Florida. And statewide, there's a huge banning effort. It's just disturbing. Seriously, deeply disturbing.
We do education, not indoctrination, and so that runs afoul of our standards. And, many people agree with that in other states. We were just the only ones that had, the backbone to stand up and do it because they call you names and they demagogue you when you do it. But look, I'm so sick of people not doing what's right because they're worried that people are going to call them names. We're doing what's right.
So you want to ban books because you think it's right. Okay, well, in that case, I'm going to feel comfortable calling you a right-wing fascist. You're banning books. What else do you call it when books are banned? You're a right-wing fascist. What information are you afraid of? And didn't he identify as like a free speech absolutist, for that matter? What happened to free speech? It just goes right out the window when it's something he doesn't like. Let me let you in on a little secret about free speech, okay? We don't have free speech to protect people who want to talk about apple pie. Free speech laws and protections only exist to protect people who want to say things that you don't like. If you don't protect people who want to say things you don't like, you don't believe in free speech at all. It's not about saying things that you enjoy hearing. It's about saying things you don't enjoy hearing.
Right
Do what's right. People will call you names, but then you get results, and you end up, in this case, living in a state that is free and flourishing and in line.
And no, it's not free by any stretch of the imagination. In no way is Florida free. They banned the book 1984, okay? How does it get less free than that? How does it get more obvious that what they're doing right now is fascism? How does it get more obvious than that? This is literally exactly what Hitler did in World War II. I hate to keep going to that example, but that's what's happening right now. Seriously.
With your values. That's how you do it. To end today's show, I want to circle right back to the beginning. We started by showing you a video from this one world government conference with evil Palpatine talking about being a master of the universe and all of the horrible things that he will do to you people. But then they oddly Skyped in Elon Musk, and Elon Musk wasn't having it.
One thing I should say, and I know this is called the World Government Summit, but I think we should be maybe a little bit concerned about actually becoming too much of a single world government.
Okay, that's not what the name meant. It was not implying that they want to be a world government. It was a collection of the governments of the world working to accomplish a goal or improve society or whatever other shit. Elon is very obviously just feeding into right-wing fear-mongering nonsense. How does it get more obvious in this, honestly?
If I may say, that we want to avoid creating a civilizational risk by having, frankly, this may sound a little odd, too much cooperation between governments.
That does sound odd. Yeah, you know what? When something sounds odd like that, maybe you should rethink it. Just knock it around for a minute in your head. Repeat it to yourself a couple times in the mirror. See if it still sounds kind of odd. Because it sounds odd to literally everybody else listening. Too much cooperation in world governments is bad. Are you fucking kidding me? What the hell is he talking about right now?
Creating a civilizational risk by having, frankly, this may sound a little odd, too much cooperation between governments. If you look at, say, at history and the rise and fall of civilizations, that really all throughout history, civilizations have risen and fallen, but it hasn't meant the doom of humanity as a whole, because there've been all these separate civilizations that were separated by great distances. So I think we want to be a little bit cautious.
Okay, so when governments fall, it doesn't mean that civilizations necessarily fall. So when, when Rome fell or whatever, the people in Rome didn't all die. The people in Rome were still in Rome. It just became something else. So I'm sorry, I simply just don't accept the premise that you're building out here. It's ridiculous.
Cautious about being too much of a single civilization, because if we are too much of a single civilization, then if the whole thing may collapse.
That just does not logically follow. That's complete nonsense. You know, everybody thought that Elon Musk was intelligent and really knew what he was talking about, because that's the image that he built for himself impressively. And the media contributed to it. They helped. They were like, yeah, absolutely. I mean, he was even in a Marvel movie, wasn't he? Oh, dude, this is actually a really hard trick. I know this trick. I think you're supposed to do like a... Dude, why is this in normal? This should not be in normal. I'm supposed to do a triple jump and then slide and do the triple jump there. Yeah, I can't do that. I mean, unless there's like a hidden block or something. Oh, there is a hidden... Never mind. Okay. Disregard. I was wrong. Okay, anyway. He was even in a Marvel movie as like some famous... wasn't he supposed to be like the Iron Man of the real world or some other thing? Turns out he's just a scumbag who lucked into his money and has a vested interest in censoring people he doesn't like. Dead serious. Elon Musk is terrible in every way. He's not extra intelligent. He's not special. He's not awesome or good or any of that garbage. He's a scumbag who loves censoring the people around him. That's it.
It would not be good if the whole thing collapsed. Now, there's an awful lot of reasons that some of the people in charge right now are worthy of a collapse, but I don't want to deal with the residual fallout of that collapse. And Elon is right. When they want one world government, well, if you have one structure above all of us, then some shit goes down over there and it's going to hurt you over here. So again, we should be reverting back to the way humans lived for literally thousands of years.
Oh, you know what? Dave is absolutely right. I think people loved it before we had any kind of civilizational structure. Hunting for berries every day and killing a cow, and if you can't manage to find a cow in the wild, then you fucking die of starvation. That was great. I loved that. Yeah, absolutely. And I bet all of the hunter-gatherers loved that too. 100%. That checks out. Yeah, we should be going back to a time before civilization existed. That sounds fantastic.
Where you were dependent on your family and your community and everything was local. And that's not to say technology is all evil. And it's not to say that there is no way for governments of other, well, certainly of states to work together on things and then countries to work together on things and all of that stuff.
This is complete garbage, dude.
But something is very wrong about this thing. So it's quite beautiful that that conference ended with Elon basically putting a poop emoji on the entire thing because he happens to be the richest guy in the world who is fighting for free speech.
He's not the richest guy in the world anymore, is he? I think he lost like a massive amount of wealth, didn't he? And I forget who it is now who's the richest. Maybe Jeff Bezos?
And fighting for the ability for nations to exist for a purpose other than just giving power over to Klaus Schwab and those other people.
No one's giving power over to anybody. Nobody even suggested giving power to Klaus Schwab. Now, I don't know how many parts in I am at this point, but Klaus Schwab basically runs a World Economic Forum, which is a think tank that helps distribute vaccines or distribute money or whatever to where it's most needed. Comes up with plans and legislation and ideas to help the poorest countries and the poorest people in those countries out of poverty, basically. That's what the World Economic Forum does. That's it.
Folks, that's our show for today. I've got a
Post-game show coming up in a second on Locals.
No, I'm losing it now. Anyway, there's a post-game.
We don't know why we're doing a post-game show. It's just something.
Okay, well, it wasn't funny the first time, and I feel like he realized it wasn't funny, so he kind of gave up on it, and then he continued on anyways. Okay, you should have just stopped where you were, Dave. That was bad. It was real bad.
Like we do, we'll vaccinate people who come in. It's very exciting. Children are depressed. You can join us at RubinReport.locals.com. And if you don't, I'll see you tomorrow.
Goodbye.
America is a nation that can be defined in a single word. I was going to put him.
He has a stutter. Yeah, that doesn't surprise me to see Joe Biden struggling with a word like that. Absolutely. He's had a stutter since he was a little kid. Of course. And it's like really disgusting to see people make fun of him for that. But it's like they have no moral value at all. Like they're willing to make fun of anybody over anything. What is wrong with Dave Rubin that he would say and do the things that he says and does? It's simply disgusting. So anyway, that's the end of the Rubin Report episode, apparently. Just wrong, man. What is wrong with these people? Let me know what you think about it in the comments. I think it's just disgusting.